The United States Smash just wrapped up and there's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. As usual, I'm going to go through each round talking about the men's side first and then the women's side. The round of 64 didn't see that much happening on the men's side outside of a great win from Kuo Guanhong against Lin Rinru. Kuo Guanhong has already been having a great year, so this was another great win to add on to that. The women's side saw a lot more upsets early on though. Most notably, the finalist of the last US Smash, Chen Yi, was eliminated. She lost to Han Ying, who once again put on an incredible performance after her win against Wang Monyu earlier this year. This was a big upset for Chen Yi because she hasn't played in the last couple major tournaments and she's been looking to prove herself again, but hasn't had the opportunity. And another person who didn't get that opportunity in this event is Hannah Goda. She lost to Du Hui Kem, who's been in very good form, but it still continues the questions about her consistency. Even though Hannah Goda has had very close matches with Sun Yingsha and Chen Meng, she's still struggling with finding consistency event after event. Another upset was the young Chinese player Xin Yuxuan beating Sabina Winter. Xin Yuxuan has only continued to improve this year, especially after her win against Hina Hayata in the World Cup. The round of 64 also saw Adriana Diaz losing to Hitomi Sato, who played very well. Adriana Diaz is a hard player to beat, and Sato beat her 3-0. Yeah, she just looked like she was in really great form. Going into the round of 32, we started to see a little bit more movement with Hiroto Shinizuka taking down Wenrabo again. Over the past few months, Shinizuka has been playing exceptionally well, and Wenrabo has been struggling to keep up the momentum that he built in Champions Chongqing. Shinizuka, though, has found the consistency in picking up impressive wins in each tournament he plays, and I think you can definitely see that he has a bright future the way he's played in these past few months. You also saw a pretty impressive win from Vladimir Sidorenko against Benedikt Duda. Once again, he just looked like he was in really good form. On the women's side, there were a couple notable upsets. Dina Meshreff was able to get a win against Shishun Yao, which was incredibly impressive given how well she played all year. Sakura Yokoi also took down Satsuki Odo, who seemed like she had all the momentum in the world. This was so impressive from Yokoi because Satsuki Odo had been getting great results in every tournament she played all year. Especially after her win against Wang Monyu, she looked kind of unstoppable. Speaking of Wang Monyu, here she played Hitomi Sato. Now, going into this, there was some cause for concern because Wang Monyu had played pretty poorly against choppers so far this year. After having a perfect record against defensive players, she lost to Han Ying in Champions Doha and had a very close battle with Honoka Hashimoto at the World Cup. And the concern for how she would play here was entirely valid because she lost 3-0. Sato was in incredible form, undeniably, but it is strange how Wang Monyu went from a completely dominating record against defenders to really struggling against them this year. You also look at her matches against Sun Yingsha, her loss to Satsuki Odo and Miwa Harimoto, and you can only help but wonder if there's some sort of decline. Obviously there's nothing major, she still played very well in a lot of tournaments, but it just seems like she's more beatable than she was before. Either way, even if that is the case, Wang Monyu is not going to give up the world number 2 anytime soon. Going into the round of 16, there were definitely quite a few surprises. To start off, Wang Chuqin went against Anders Lind, who had beaten him in the past. At this point in the draw, Wang Chuqin and Lin Shidong were the only remaining Chinese players left, so a lot was riding on Wang Chuqin getting far in this tournament. But Anders was ready for this match and was able to defeat Wang Chuqin again. At any point in this match, it kind of felt like Wang Chuqin was going to be able to make the incredible recovery that he usually does, but Anders Lind was just able to close it out. And obviously, for as disappointing of a result as this is for Wang Chuqin, I do think in this tournament it was kind of inevitable. When you look at the draw for this tournament, it was actually sort of the worst possible outcome for Wang Chuqin. If the draw played out how you would expect, he would have gone against Zhou Jihao, Flavien Coton, Anders Lind, Sora Matsushima, and Felix Lebrun, all players who have either beaten him or taken him to 11-9 in the decider. So it's not like if Chuqin got past Anders Lind, he would have had an easy path waiting for him, but it's probably still disappointing. And obviously for Anders Lind, this was an incredible win, and he did a lot of things exceptionally well here. So once Chuqin was eliminated, Lin Shidong was the last Chinese player in the men's draw. He went against Alexei Lebrun, which is a matchup he could have been hopeful for, but he ended up losing 3-0. So like that, the Chinese national team had been completely wiped out of the men's draw before the quarterfinals. Any questions that may have been calmed after their win at the World Team Championships have definitely re-emerged, and they still seem very inconsistent. Obviously Wang Chuqin is incredible, but there have been more and more people who have been able to challenge him, and unfortunately for him, there doesn't seem to be any other Chinese players who are able to bring any sort of consistency to these tournaments. Lin Shidong and Wenrabo and Chen Yanyu have all had their moments, but they've also had their struggles. With Wang Wang Chuqin getting older and a lot of young players not finding their consistency, it really seems like the era of Chinese dominance in male table tennis might be coming to an end. But Wang Chuqin wasn't the only top seed to get wiped out in the round of 16. Tomokazu Harimoto went against Vladimir Sidorenko and lost 0-3. Vladimir Sidorenko is a relatively younger player who's been banned from competing for a while because of Russia's ban from international sports. But even though he couldn't play for so long, he was able to show the world what he was training for. In this match against Harimoto, he looked absolutely incredible, and he would continue to look incredible in the future of this tournament. This match is where people really started to notice who Vladimir Sidorenko was. And it didn't stop there, as Hiroto Shinazuka picked up another impressive win against Hugo Calderano. Like I said before, Shinazuka has just been able to pick up impressive wins over the course of the past few months. He's really shown a lot of promise for somebody who I don't think is talked about as much as a lot of other younger players. In terms of what this match means for Hugo Calderano, it's continued the sort of slump that he's been in, and it is a little bit worrisome at this point. What exactly is causing it is hard to say, but for being the world number 2 earlier this year, Hugo just hasn't had good results in really any tournament he's played. On the women's side, Zhu Chuanhui had an incredible match against Zhu Yuling and was able to eliminate her 3-0. So now going into the quarterfinals, none of the finalists from the last US Smash were still in the tournament. Shen Jingtong also had a very impressive win against Xin Yuxuan, who looked very good in the previous round but was completely shut down here. We saw something pretty similar with Kwaiman getting an impressive win against Shin Yubin, who had been playing very well the whole tournament. Even though it's hard to say that Shin Yubin is quite on the level of Kwaiman, it's surprising how dominant she was in this match. Especially considering that earlier this year, Shin Yubin won a game 21-19 against Wang Monyu. It's surprising to me that she wasn't able to put up a very good fight in this match. And one of the most interesting matches of the tournament happened here when Hitomi Sato went against Honoka Hashimoto, who are both defensive players. Now with a match like this, the expedite rule would obviously get called into play, but the first 10 minutes of this match were very fun to watch. I think that watching two defensive players play each other is very entertaining, and there was even a 209 shot rally that went on for 3 minutes. Once the expedite rule was called in, it was pretty clear that Hitomi Sato just thrived a little bit more in these rules and was able to win 3-0. Going into the quarterfinals, things calmed down a little bit. Sora went against Anders Lind, who was obviously very in form, and Sora was able to completely dismantle him. He won 4-0 against the man who had just beaten Wang Chuqin. Felix and Alexei Lebrun played each other, which is always fun to watch, and after Alexei won the first 2 games, Felix was able to win 4 straight to move into the semifinal. Truls had a match against Zhang Wujin, and in that match looked better than ever. Hiroto Shinazuka went against Vladimir Sidorenko, and Sidorenko was able to once again show how well he can play. Every game in this match was incredibly close, but ultimately Sidorenko was able to overcome Shinazuka. On the women's side, Sun Yingxia looked to be in better form than ever, if that's even possible. She played Shen Jingtong, who looked very in form after her win against Xin Yuxuan, and absolutely dominated the match. Through the 4 games they played, Shen Jingtong had an average of 5.5 points in each game. And it's crazy to think that not even a year ago, Shen Jingtong beat Sun Yingxia in Champions Yokohama. Shen Jingtong has been struggling a little bit this year, but either way, it was an incredible performance from Sun Yingxia. Miwa Harimoto went against Hina Hayata and was able to overcome her 2-9 record against her to move herself into the semifinals. And in what was probably the match of the event, Kwaiman went against Hitomi Sato. Now, Kwaiman has never played particularly well against defenders, and Hitomi Sato looked to be in incredible form in this tournament, so it was hard to see how Kwaiman could win this. And that became pretty clear when Kwaiman went down 3-1 even after the expedite rule was called in the 4th game. But this is where Kwaiman showed a part of her game that I think is more essential than anything else. By game 5, when Hitomi Sato had 2 match points, Kwaiman was able to win 4 points in a row to take it to the 6th game, and in the 6th game, Kwaiman won 11-3. And after being down 3-1, Kwaiman showed her mental resilience by going up 10-6 in the decider, giving herself 4 match points. But that wasn't the end of the match, as Hitomi Sato went on to save all 4, pushing it to deuce. Both players went on to exchange match point, and it was only on Kwaiman's 7th match point at 17-16 when she was finally able to convert it. I think that the absolute grit that Kwaiman showed in this match was one of the most important things to her game. You see it from the best in the world, like Wang Chuqin or Sun Yingxia. They're always able to come back from really difficult situations. Even though Kwaiman has been very good, it never really felt like she had that level of mental resilience that the top players in the world have. But like she showcased in this match and later in the tournament, that is something that she possesses. And obviously even though Kwai Man got the win, this run from Hitomi Sato was insane. To take down Wangmon Yu and then be in this type of match with Kwai Man takes a lot of skill, so she definitely deserves a lot of praise. Moving into the semifinals, it began with Sora Matsushima versus Felix Lebrun. Going into this, Felix had the favorable record, with Sora's only win against him coming in the qualifying rounds of the World Team Championships earlier this year. Sora and Felix are probably considered the two biggest young threats to take over the world number 1 once Wang Chuqin begins to decline. So obviously there is a little bit of a rivalry there, so there was a lot riding on this match. And they definitely delivered on providing an entertaining match because almost every single game went to deuce. And eventually, even though obviously it was very close, Sora was able to beat Felix 4-1. This was definitely an impressive win from Sora because even Wang Chuqin in the World Cup had more trouble against Felix. On the other side of the semifinals, Vladimir Sidorenko went against a very informed Truls Morgard. Once Truls went up 3-1, it looked like he completely controlled the match and it would be over relatively quickly. But as Truls looked like he was struggling with an injury, he got himself into trouble against Sidorenko. Sidorenko took the next two games and all of the momentum shifted to his side, to the point where in the decider he was up 9-2. But despite that, Truls is Truls and he somehow pushed it to deuce. And in the final point, when Sidorenko was up 11-10, his ball caught the edge of the table and he won the match. So after fighting from down to 9, Truls Morgard was completely shut down and he was eliminated. Even though his fight in the decider was insane, Sidorenko played exceptionally well and he definitely also deserved to win that match. And so Sidorenko came into this event, his second ever Grand Smash, and he defeated the world number 2 and the world number 3 to find himself in the finals. On the women's side, Sun Ying-sha went against a pretty informed Wang Yidi, but nothing was going to slow her down at this point. She took care of Wang Yidi in 5 games and she found herself in the finals, having only lost 1 game the entire tournament. Things weren't so easy on the other side of the semifinals though, as Kwai Man went against Miwa Harimoto. Very similar to Sora and Felix, these are probably the two biggest young threats on the women's side. This was also a rematch of Champions Chongqing, where Miwa was able to defeat Kwai Man in the 7th game to win her first Champions event. And also like the Sora and Felix match, every game was very close, but once Miwa won the 5th game 11-4, it seemed like she was going to be able to close it out. But just like her match against Hitomi Sato, Kwai Man was ready to keep fighting. She was able to battle incredibly hard to take the next 2 games and win the match after it seemed like it was already over. So Kwai Man was once again showing how mentally resilient she is against Miwa Harimoto, who is probably one of the most mentally solid players in the sport. So moving into the finals, it was 2 powerhouses in Sora Matsushima and Vladimir Sidorenko. Sora came out the gate incredibly strong, and even though Sidorenko put up a great fight, it just seemed like Sora was on a different level. It did seem like Sidorenko was going through some sort of physical discomfort, but either way, Sora was having the tournament of his life. Sora was able to overwhelm him and win 4-2 to secure his first Smash title ever. Even though Sora eventually won the tournament, Sidorenko's run was absolutely incredible to watch. Being able to go from not being able to play for years to going into your second Grand Smash ever and making it into the finals is just insane. Now that he's had this breakout performance, I'm very excited to see what happens with Sidorenko and how well he can perform in the future. But in terms of Sora, over the past year, he's won his first Champions event, his first Grand Smash, beat the world number 1, and made it to the finals of the World Cup, and he's 19. It's hard to not see an insane amount of potential in him, and it does seem like his mental strength is getting better, which was always the biggest question. Towards the end of the tournament, you saw him getting himself going more and being able to overcome more difficult moments in the match. Now he's broken into the World Top 4, and realistically, the sky's the limit for Sora, especially after he's proven he can beat Wang Chuqin. Going into the women's final, it was Sun Ying-sha versus Kwai Man. This was a pretty dangerous matchup for Sun Ying-sha because Kwai Man is the only person who's beaten her all year. Sun Ying-sha has won every single match against everyone but Kwai Man. But with the form that Sun Ying-sha showed throughout this tournament, it seemed like she would be unstoppable. And she went up 3-1 pretty dominantly. But at this point, Kwai Man had proven that she has the mental strength to keep fighting, and that's what she did. So against Sun Ying-sha, she won the next 2 games and even saved 3 match points to take it to the decider. And despite the incredible fight from Kwai Man, Sun Ying-sha is Sun Ying-sha, and she was able to take the last game. And this was actually Sun Yingxia's first US Smash title, as she had lost the previous year to Chen Yi. So not like Sun Yingxia really has anything to prove, but if she did, she definitely proved it in this tournament. But going into this tournament, I saw Miwa Harimoto as sort of the undisputed best young player in the women's game, and I was looking for a performance from Chen Yi or Kuai Man to sort of prove me wrong. Given Miwa's consistency and how mentally calm she stays, and her win against Wang Manyu and Zhu Yuling, it really felt like Miwa just had the upper hand on them. But the absolute grit that Kuai Man showed in this tournament was sort of exactly what I was looking for. And now, it's hard to say who's better, but I would definitely say they're both at least on the same level. Mostly because I believe that mental resilience and consistency is the most important part to becoming one of the best players in the world. And I think it makes it even more clear that Chen Yi does have something to prove after she went out in the first round of this tournament. But overall, given the sort of decline of Wang Yidi and Chen Jingtong to a degree, and with Wang Wanyu looking a little weaker than usual, it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the world rankings over the next few months. But yeah, that's just about everything that happened at the US Smash this year. So yeah, let me know what you thought about the US Smash this year, and that's it. Thank you.